Our program speaker, David Monte Verde, has, as you've seen in our program, has quite an extensive resume, and he was born here in Dansville, and that's, one more thing that I think to kind of be proud of Dansville for. So I'm just going to go ahead and let him take it from here, and he's already given us a nice little preview. So, David?
Thank you. I'd like to walk, but I got to tend my slides here. Yes, I am from Dansville. Everybody said I grew up hanging around Lackawanna with Tommy Womp and Paulie Womp. We used to always up the tracks all the time and walk down the depot, so I had a great affinity. I got out of college and I wanted to work for the railroad. My father said no, and so I went to work for General Railway Signal Company. Ended up starting my own railroad, playing with my own trains. So that leads me to where I kind of am tonight. So it's always been a love. My favorite railroad has been the Lackawanna, growing up in the Lackawanna. And the great affinity is the Groveland, the grade to go out of the Genesee Valley. It was the second steepest grade in the Lackawanna Railroad, the other one being out of Scranton, Pennsylvania, 1.59%, which I happen to be operating railroads trains daily on that line out of Scranton, Pennsylvania. We have a flour mill up in the Poconos. So I am actually operating the steepest grade, and the Dansville Hill was the second steepest grade down the Lackawanna. So here's a nice picture of the ABA set 1,500 each locomotives that were assigned to Groveland to push the trains up the hill out of the Genesee Valley. Okay, just to give you a little orientation, the Genesee Valley it's kind of interesting because here you start going with a grade westbound. You're climbing the Niagara Escarpment into Buffalo. Then, of course, this is all the Genesee Valley in here. And you had to climb the Dansville Hill, East Hill, and go to Wayland. So there was quite a little bit of an issue with the Lackawanna River when they built this. Of course, there's the Whiteman's Gully Bridge there and the Culbertson Bridge up here, which we'll see a little bit later in our slides. Now, feel free to stop me anytime you want. This is a train coming eastbound. The Bird's Eye plant in Mount Morris is there. The locomotive is actually coming this way. This is a Mount Morris Penna where they cross the Pensy line into Rochester. That's approaching the same area. The Bird's Eye's on your right. Come on, baby.
Is that where the Rails to Trails is now?
Rails to Trails, it's the Greenway there. So this is a good shot of it to the present day. Here's the Greenway. It comes across 36, goes across Genesee River here. This is the old Lackawanna, Maine, Genesee River, and they have the line over to the new salt mine there. Same spot, an eastbound train coming, taken from the tower. And there's a Pennsylvania Railroad coal train going southbound with some empty hopper cars. That's the tower from the Pensy looking up. And I was very fortunate when the tower closed in 62, and in 63 I was the proud owner of this sign right here, if I can get to it, right there. It's now in my family room. Yeah, Dale and W Junction, so there's another shot of the tower, train going away, looking westbound. So there's a tower like when it got abandoned, and they tore the Pensy tracks out in the foreground there. There's a tower with the Pensy tracks all gone. So just kind of a little perspective, again, Priscilla, the tower was here at Dale and W Junction, where the Pensy kind of went up through Nunday, down to Hinsdale and Olean into Rochester. And then they also crossed the branch of the Erie Railroad here at Mount Morris, town of Mount Morris. So really, the grade really started here. And sometimes you'll see the pushers on. They'll go down to Mount Morris and meet a train. But everything's going to be happening here at Groveland Station because it was a very, very busy railroad town. There was close to 100 people that worked there. Early picture of the Mount Morris Station. The Lackawanna Railroad was built through here in 1880, and it was kind of iron, steel iron, cast iron bridges and that. And Sam Sloan was a very Christian man. He didn't even operate trains on weekends. And in 1901, he passed, and William Haynes Truesdale became president of Lackawanna. And he went out, he built all these beautiful stations here and modernized the railroad, huge cutoffs, all new bridges. He filled in Culberson's Glen, Mill Creek Glen. But there's a picture of the station with the flower bed. The railroads actually had their own greenhouses. They brought flowers. They grew their own flowers. Leaving Mount Morris, a little speeder track car shanties on the left. We're heading towards, the engineer make. So here's where I was telling you before. Now, this guy is an eastbound, and he went down with the pushers that in this case are the diesels, Diesels came in about 47 or 48. They started replacing the steam, and the steam was all gone on its pushers in 1950. So this guy, he had deadheaded down to Mount Morris and got on the train. This is Mount Morris, train 15. It was the Owl. It was the mail train, came in, left Hoboken about midnight and got in Dansville about 12 hours later. Yep, that's Bob said his father came back from the war in that train. They made him sleep on the floor. This is kind of an interesting picture. What the kids would do was they would come down and they would ride the train down to Dansville, to Mount Morris. This is a group of kids from Wayland. They'd ride the train, the Owl, which you just saw, like 11 o'clock in the morning. So then the bus would come down and pick the kids up and take them back to Wayland. So there's a Wayland school bus, and the kids somebody identified, I had this online, they identified some of the kids in there. So this is probably like 1952-ish, yeah, I'd say right 1952. There's the Phoebe Snow in Mount Morris.
Is that depot still standing?
The depot is still there. Somebody had actually stored tires in it, and it was got kind of really ratty inside. Then the guy bought it, and he's got his residence in there. He lives in the house, in the depot. This is during Conrail. When they first started out, they had locomotives from everywhere. There's the Canadian National locomotive. The G&W now comes down to the American Motor Power, the old Foster Wheeler plant. This is them coming by the Mount Morris station. Another perspective from the aerial. Again, the depot is here. This is where the Erie came across and went to Rochester. They had electric interurban type things, and this is Mount Morris. So now we're just kind of right in the floor of the Genesee Valley. We're going to head up to Groveland, and here's the Dansville Mount Morris line that came from Dansville, went to Saguenay and into Mount Morris, and so this is the Erie Diamond here, and we're going to Groveland Station here in like 1 minute. Oops, there's Erie Red Ball. That's where the Erie crossed the Lackawanna there. So the Mount Morris depot is back here. For you, Priscilla, the D&W junction is back here, and this is another tower. And then the Pensy crossed here, and then we're going now eastbound on Lackawanna Limited, is before the Phoebe Snow came out. And we're going to go to Groveland, and we're going to get pushed up the hill.
John?
On the Delaware Lackawanna.
What do you do, John?
I push.
What do you push, John?
I push the tractor.
Where do you push, John? On the Delaware Lackawanna, the Delaware Lackawanna. Hey, where do you work, John?
On the Delaware Lackawanna.
And what you do, John?
I push.
Where do you push, John?
I push the tractor.
Where do you push, John? The Delaware Lackawanna, the Delaware Lackawanna.
Lackawanna.
What do you do, John?
I push.
Where do you push, John?
I push the tractor.
Where do you push the truck? On the Delaware Lackawanna, the Delaware Lackawanna.
This is it was a little song. Where do you work, John? The Delaware Lackawanna. What do you do, John? I push. So let's go to Groveland again. Till 1935, the Lackawanna and the D&M didn't connect. The D&M was an Erie railroad, originally built by them, and so the Lackawanna had a little turning Y. This is Cancer Creek. They didn't cross this. This is a 1927 map of Groveland Station, and it wasn't until 1937 with the Dansville Chamber of Commerce they fought because they would take cars to Mount Morris. They'd sit a day or two in Mount Morris. They'd go to Rochester on the branch line. It was like 4 or 5, 6 days to get in a car to New York City. So the Chamber of Commerce of Dansville fought with the Interstate Commerce Commission and helped to get this as a connection to Dansville Morris. So here we are. We're in Groveland, and this is where the coal tower was, the turning Y. There was a locomotive servicing facility here. Quite a complex. There was between 80 and 100 people that worked in Dansville. Actually, they actually ran a train out of Buffalo in the morning and back at night because there were so many workers that worked here and didn't live here. So they ran them out. The steam engines were very, very labor intensive. There's an agway plant here. Here was the depot. Those team tracks behind the depot. There was a milk plant there. This is 63. This is my hand drawing. I did years ago, and I just had to put it in there. So it's kind of another aerial shot of here's the Dansville Mount Morris. If you go down Route 390, you go over the overpass of the Lackawanna, there's a pole line that goes all the way to Mount Morris. It follows the D&M to Mount Morris. The Groveland Station and Tower are here. This was all the yards. It's all a woods now. And this is the Y that connected where they turned the pushers. Here's what I was telling you. It's 21.4 mile rise from Mount Morris to the top of the hill at Whalen. 782 feet and 21 miles equates to a pretty steep grade, 1.14%. Usually you get up in the high 80s or 90, you get to 1%, you do need helper or pusher engines, as they called them. Here we are coming in on a diesel into Groveland. Again, there's a crossover. This is the pusher sitting in the siding, maybe waiting to give this guy a shove. These are the two mains here. This was a pocket track for a long time. Then they put a switch in, but the pushers would sit in there and then come out, get on the train, show up the hill. The coal tower was taken down in '52, so I'm conjecturing this is probably 51-ish with the diesel. Still got a little steam kicking around the yard. This is from the passenger train. When the Lackawanna and the Erie merged in October 1760, the passengers train ran till like July of '62. And so here's an Erie Lackawanna now, not Lackawanna pusher, waiting for a freight train. But this is a Lackawanna, probably the remnant of the Phoebe Snow. The Y off to the Dansville Mount Morris to the right there.
Were those pushers used year-round or mostly just in the winter?
No, 100%, 365, 7 days a week, 24/7. So here we are. Again, that last picture was looking at the coal tower from a distance. Here's a train, a westbound train. He's got like empty stock cars and reefer cars. Here's the cars. This is the, it had 4 pockets in Dansville. Siding pocket, East Main, and west siding. And so these are the coal cars over here that are being dumped, and they go up on the conveyor belt up in here, cross the conveyor belt and fill bins over each track. And here's the chutes they would drop down into the locomotives to fuel the locomotives. You got a question, somebody? They put the coal in the locomotives and threw it in the firebox and burned it. Yeah.
How long did they have those?
Oh, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Who asked that question over there?
Jan.
Oh, Jan, I knew it was you. All right, so here's a picture of again, that picture of the coal towers. And then here it is in 2020. The G&W has taken over. They run to Dansville, and the line there ends in the woods. But just look at the 2 pictures. I mean, I'll show you this track right here is a track that he's going out on. It goes over to the Y and goes on to Dansville. But this is all a forest now. It's just, here's the shot. That's the next shot. That's the next view of virtually the same spot. This track here is the eastbound siding. The 2 mains were here, and the westbound siding was over there. But this is the old eastbound main. They used to go down to an agway dealer in Groveland. Just some of the specs on the tower when they built it in 1907. Again, this was another modernization that William Haynes Truesdale brought to the railroad. He improved all the grades. These guys are up on the scaffolds there. They're still building the tower there. So this is 1907. It did last until 1952. So this is interesting. Again, comparing Dansville to Scranton, Pennsylvania. Groveland, which is here, patent bucket lift but it had 2 soft cold chutes and 2 anthracite chutes. The anthracite would be used for the Passenger trains and soft coal would be used for the steam, for the freight trains. Here's the capacity of Dansville, only surpassed by double the size at Scranton, which probably had 5 times the amount of trains. So Scranton was at 1,500 tons, and Groveland was 720 tons of coal in the coal tower.
Hey, did you say Groveland employed about 100 people?
At least 100, yeah, more than 100. There was like 6 pusher crews. There were 3 men, so that's 18. There was tons of people in the shops, the locomotive shops, and car knockers. It was a pretty busy place. There used to be like 5 gin mills in Groveland, wasn't there? Do you remember? Wasn't there 5 gin mills in Groveland? Yeah. So the railroaders would take their lunch and come back, and take their lunch and come back. Yeah, they actually, Lackawanna had a YMCA there that you could stay. Here, I was telling you about that locomotive before, that the work train that ran from Groveland to Buffalo. This is it, and it had like a little mail car and a rider car for the employees to go back to Buffalo, back and forth between Groveland.
It's like a German engine.
No, it's just a Pacific that's been modernized with a wing streamliner on it. So here we are, about the same spot under the coaling tower, a westbound freight getting coal. Here's one of the pushers sitting on the eastbound siding, ready to push somebody up the hill. No, we're looking right now as like 1937, 40. So when I was telling you about the coal tower, I had this old train order, and it was hundreds of copies and made copies of, but it reads, Buffalo, April 70, 1952, C&E extras, conductor injury, eastward trains except first-class trains, all the passenger trains. Account of dismantling Groveland coaling tower plant, 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. daily. Approach is prepared to stop on if flagged. Excuse me. The JAC is John Connor, who was the Lackawanna division general manager in '52. Well, whatever. That's the division general manager. He would sign a general bulletin order like this. Here we have like a little small switcher engine. He would probably be doing local work up the hill to Dansville, to Wayland and back. One of the lighter engines, same engine, just some different lighting. Here we are at the coal tower. This is probably like 1895-ish. Like I said, the Lackawanna was opened in 1882. So these are some young guys. They're in the pusher crew, sitting in front of the tower, waiting for a freight train to come. This again is pre-Truesdale rehabbing the railroad. There's virtually no tie plates on the rails, lighter rail, and Truesdale came along and he bought the heavier rail, replaced the older bridges with new bridges. This is one of the pusher engines. The 1200s and 2100s were big, kind of just real get down on your knees and push. And then they were kind of replaced by the diesels, I said. Now, here's a shot of the pusher power, and whoever asked, was you, Priscilla? This is Route 63 right here. So, and that's right where the roundhouse is, and this is Route 63. So it's a forest in there now. Well, the pushers, like I showed you before, the pusher there was in 1899. So they pushed from 1899 until the merger, probably in late 50s. So, which one was that? Yeah, this is 52-ish. And there's they took one of the units away because this day they were going to use it. Oh, but by the way, this is the last Lackawanna road locomotive, and I found this, was really elated because I own this locomotive now. It was the last road locomotive of the Lackawanna Railroad. We have it in our shop in Scranton. We're in the process of rebuilding it. We put a lot of new wheels on it, and we're going to paint it back in this Lackawanna scheme. But it's the last remaining Lackawanna road locomotive other than the switchers. What they used, they had a local, did all the local work, BE2, Buffalo, Delmira, and EB1, and usually these GP7s were assigned to that. They're just 1,800 horsepower locomotive assigned to the local work. Another thing, this is a single track snowplow. We just got this from Chessie about a year ago. They donated it to us, and we're going to take it back down to Scranton. That's a snowplow. It's a double track plow. So what you would have is it's not a V. You want to push the snow on the other track, so you just have a single, and it pushes the snow off to the left. A pusher, yep. Very good, girl. Yeah, CSX had it. So here's the other side of the plow that the pusher will push. And like I said, it's a double track plow. So regular plows are wide open, so you just push the snow to the side. This has a barrier so you don't dump it on the other main, because the guy's going to come back the other way and plow the other's track. This is the engine servicing facility. People call it a roundhouse, but it was very square. This lasted until like 1999. My son always wanted to go down and take measurements and pictures of it. This is in its way it looked into the 80s and 90s. And my son wanted to go down and do some modeling. He wanted to take some pictures. My mother passed in 99, and we said, let's go to Groveland. And we drove in there, and the road was all bulldozed. And we both said, I'm not getting a good feeling. And we went in there, and it was all, they bulldozed this thing after it sat for 70 years. This is one of the big pusher engines that's sitting on the track. That's a 482. Yep. Just some more of the pushers laying around in Groveland. Then the old Dansville Mount Morris, they came into town too. This Dansville Mount Morris, they were one of the last railroads dieselized. They dieselized in 1956. They bought the last built GE 44 tonner in May of 1956, and this is them coming into Groveland to pick up their cars. What? Who's asking all those questions over there? Which building? That building? That's the building that we just saw here. That's this building in disrepair. This is one of my sketches of the roundhouse. There's I call it an engine house. People have called it a roundhouse. And again, like I said, this is the Y that connected to the Dansville Mount Morris. When you saw the D&M engine, it was on this leg of the Y. Okay, this is the oil house, which was where they kept the oil. No, it was funny because you went in there, and before they tore it down in 99, the floor had about 18 inches of oil on the floor. It was a dirt floor. Maybe it was a concrete floor with 18 inches of oil. These tanks were, they pumped the water out of Cancerega Creek, and they put the water in the steam engines for the pushers. Those tanks are gone, but all these concrete platforms are still there. This is the Dansville Mount Morris picked up the Foster Wheeler stuff, and before it went out of business, they had these huge heat exchangers. This is Erie Lackawanna, circa 1972, 3-ish, picking up a Dansville Mount Morris interchange in Groveland.
Is that something they're hauling for Foster Wheeler?
That's a finished product, part of it, to be assembled product of of Foster Wheeler going out. So here we are, kind of a look at the present day Groveland. My pen. Here's the oops, where am I going here? No, here's the Lackawanna Main coming here. You go under 390 here in the bridge. Here's where the Dansville Mount Morris used to go to Saguenay and to Mount Morris. And here's where the Pensy went to Nunday. And so now they come up the Lackawanna Main, and they cut over on the D&M here. They go up the middle of the valley, and they go up to American Motor Power and the old Foster Wheeler building. So here's a situation where 565 is a D&M engine. He's facing towards Mount Morris. And so what he would do is he'd come down with his cars, and he would uncouple from the cars, and the Lackawanna engine would come out and back out and go in and take his cars out there. And then he would put those cars away, and he would shove the D&M's cars here, and he'd come down, and Joe Rongo would get on the rear of the train and run the engine backwards to Dansville. I wrote it many times myself, too. So here's another shot. Again, here's a shot of, these are outbound Dansville Mount Morris, and there's the inbound stuff right there. And that's the Lackawanna engine switching around in Mount Morris, in the Y, top of the Y. This is the D&M engine in the Mount Morris yard. Now we're up to the east end of sorry, that was the Groveland yard, my apologies. Here's the original tower. It was built in 1880 on the Lackawanna to control the pushers coming out. So when I say the tower was closed in 53, this is a CTC bungalow, centralized traffic control, so the dispatcher could throw these switches, which were, before he was there, they're all manual Armstrong switches, and all the crossovers are way long rods. Here's an eastbound freight. He's on the main, and the tower again is off to your left, and the pushers are hooked onto the back and ready to give a high ho up to the hill, up Dansville Hill. Another shot, there's a westbound train in the siding. the Groveland Tower, and this is with the CTC, Centralized Traffic Control. This is remote from Buffalo because all electronics are in this case here, and the tower was effectively closed. Is it, no, my Groveland sign is from the depot. Hans Tanner had that. He had the Groveland sign. It was really in bad shape. And then he got the Groveland station, the tower sign, and he sold me the Groveland station sign. So here we got an eastbound train waiting for his pushers to. He's got to pull by, and get on the train and shove them up the hill. Again, here's a picture from the tower of a diesel train coming by the tower, and I don't know what that contraption is ahead of the steam engine. It's not a caboose. It's not a flanger car, 'cause that's a winter thing. But here's a diesel passing a steam engine, a pusher in the siding, the tower. And this station over here, Miss McNeil, is where the Groveland sign came from. Oh. And there's inside the tower that which lever did you throw there, man? These are really hard. There's a rod that goes down, turns, and goes out like this. Might go out like 50 yards out to your right, and it's actually got to throw a switch. So you had to be pretty strong to move these. So there is the tower sign over on the left, and there's the Groveland sign that's on the stage, the exact sign. So here's the steam engine. He's heading up the hill, kicking up the dust. There is the Groveland sign that you see right below it. And there's the Groveland sign that you see right below it. Yes, the depot, they had an auction there, and then somebody tore it down and took it away. They were going to put it back together. Last I heard it was under canvas in a field, which probably is not good for the wood to sit. About 5 of them. So I had an adopted uncle. He was the agent in Dansville, Carl Howe. He lived in Hornell, and that's his Mercury. Probably is like 66, 68 Mercury. He closed Groveland. He closed Wayland. He closed Wayland. He closed Cohocton. He closed Avoca. He closed Campbell. And the last day of the Erie-Lackawanna Railroad on March 31st, 76, he closed Mount Morris. So I would help him, facilitate him, cleaning out the junk that was in the stations. When I told you before, my mother died in '99, and we drove down just a single road, all forest around here. This outhouse, before they bulldozed everything, was still there. It's a male and female, very rare. A male and female outhouse was really kind of a cool building. I always wanted to go down and just take it apart and put it someplace. It was so cool. But that lasted till, like I said, 1999. So here's a really good picture, which I'm actually going to have enlarged and put next to my sign when I mount it. But now the tower is gone, so there's a flagman. You probably talked to the dispatcher on the phone. He's got a white hanky here, and he's giving the guy the highball. He's got the switch is lined from the siding to the main. This is a stub track here, and the pushers are probably already on the back end. Yeah, we're in the classic railroad pin. So there is the same picture today, like now, there, and I stood in the same spot in there. So here's I picked this up from a friend. It's blurry, but here's a westbound train, and here's the train with the pushers on the back, 2-unit pushers, the caboose. He's going that way, and this guy's going this way. This just popped up on the internet about a few or 5 months ago. This is right just east of where that. If I go back, wish I had a clicker. I had to go with this mouse. So this is Groveland's right down here, and there's used to be an underpass here. Can't remember who lives there. He's got a railroad crossing sign out in his front yard. But where that steam engine is stopped is right over here to the right. And he must have had some problems because he was stopped on the hill. He's not moving with that way that smoke plume was going. There's a west prevailing wind that's blowing the smoke to the east. Here we are. Like I said before, when Sam Sloan built the railroad in 1880, they had Culberson's Glen, and they had Whiteman's Gully and over Mill Creek. And they were very spindly bridges. These are doesn't look spindly, but it's a cast iron bridge. And then they had the smaller locomotives you see up there. And Truesdale came along. He wanted to heavier locomotives. He wanted to heavier tonnage. So he went and modernized the railroad. He kind of took them into the 20th century. Okay, here we are at Dansville Station. Now, the Lackawanna Railroad was foreign because the Delaware and Lackawanna and the Lackawanna and Western went to Binghamton, and they took coal.
Is this Groveland?
This is Groveland Station, where the sign was on the one side there. Okay, I'm sorry. Bob just asked me if this is Groveland. He's busting my horns. I'm hot up here. This fan is blowing hot air on me, too, besides Bob and my back blowing hot air in my ears. Okay, so where am I? Groveland. Okay, yes. No, like I said, sorry. Sam Sloan, he was kind of a Christian man, didn't run on Sundays. And so when Truesdale came along, he modernized everything. And so he actually, this was the original station for Dansville, and they moved it, and they built this 2-story station for the agent. Very 100% unique. There's no other station on the Lackawanna like this, but it was a 2-story station. So when the Lackawanna was bringing their coal to out of the Lackawanna Valley, they brought it to Binghamton. They went up to Ithaca on a little short line railroad, and they put the coal in barges, took it up Cayuga Lake to the Erie Canal, and they could go to Buffalo or Syracuse. So they wanted to get their own railroad, their own kind of manifest destiny. So they built their own railroad. They started a separate railroad. I have some locks up here and a switch key from it. It's called the New York, Lackawanna, and Western. It was the wholly owned subsidiary of Delaware Lackawanna to build the railroad from Binghamton to Buffalo. And so the ground was broken in Dansville December 13th, 1880, and the first train ran through Dansville on September 25th, 1882. Now, I defy anybody to build, 197 miles of railroad in 2 years. Yeah, less than 2 years. Less than 2 years. Here's a map. You can get an idea. And here's 256, used to be the underpass. Dave Kiefer wanted to blow up. And then the tracks came here, and the station was here. There was team tracks back here where we used to load the FAO and publishing companies' magazines, the Instructor. We used to drag those 80-pound. I was a kid helping them out, loading the cars there. And this is where the station sat. This is the old 256, which you'll see some pictures in a minute, before they built the road up here on the underpass, which is now gone. 256 came up like this, crossed over, down, back, and around. Here we are, a little orientation again. Village of Dansville used to be, I don't think it was Depot Road or Lackawanna. I wish they would have called it Lackawanna, but it went out Health Street. This is before 256 went straight this way, crossed the Lackawanna here, and went that way. So at this point, 256 came up, crossed the station at this road here, and went up around here. It went left and right. It was all wiggle waggle all the way up until the mid to late 50s. So here we are. This farm, I think, is still there. This is 256 underpasses right here. This is a pusher that they put on the front of the train. He's got a heavy tonnage. He's coming into the Dansville station. This is a potato warehouse here that was on a team track in the Dansville station. Oops. This is kind of a cool shot. Oh, shoot. So this is the head end of the train, and then we got the diesel pushers on the rear of the train. And the conductor sticking his head out here, same spot. Look at the nice-looking ballast, the way the Lackawanna kept. They were very proud of their track and kept care of it. So this is another thing that I was an anomaly. This is an eastbound coal train. Now, the math doesn't work in your mind if you know what's going on, because the Lackawanna hauled anthracite coal from Scranton, Pennsylvania to Buffalo, and they put it on the Great Lakes. And then I couldn't figure out why they're hauling coal east, but this is railroad company coal for the steam engine, because they're all Lackawanna gondola cars. So he's probably taking this load of coal to Scranton and to Hoboken. So one of the big Poconos, a 484, a mountain, and it's a huge locomotive. None of these got preserved. There was one of these offered to the city of Scranton, but they didn't take it. But it's sad that they're all cut up. So this is the head end of the train, the big Pocono in the front, and it got a guy in the back with the conductor and the brakeman on the back with their tie, little Cromer's cap on, being shoved up the hill. Interesting thing that these cabooses they're wood framed. This is all wood caboose. And in 1947, the Lackawanna, because they had two pusher districts, they built cabooses just like this. They built them all out of steam. What they did is they took the tenders of the steam locomotives that were scrapping, and they built the caboose on top of the tenders, so you had like a solid I-beam. In the later years, the cabooses were a little bit more safer, because there's instances where the cabooses would actually crush This is a eastbound steaming up the hill, right on the 256 underpass bridge there, which is now gone.
That engine that you just showed, it looked like it had its own plow.
Yeah, some of them had a snow plow. Yeah, some of that would basically stay in the west end of the railroad. They had their own plows. Very good, astute observation, Priscilla. This is reputed to be the first diesel locomotive through Dansville, July 24th, 1946, because, of course, during World War II, you weren't allowed to produce any locomotives or just necessity because of whatever the government would dictate. So this, right after the World War II ended, a lot of diesels started showing up. This is reputed to be the first diesel locomotive through Dansville, and there's the potato warehouse in the background. Here's a pusher that just kind of pushed the guy up the hill, and he turned on the Y in Wayland. He's just drifting down, stopping for a cup of coffee, maybe in the Wayland in Dansville Depot. Dansville water tank there. This next picture is really, really neat because this is, I believe, to be the guys coming home from war. And I looked at this picture. I found this picture on the internet and looked at it 30, 40, 50 times. Here's everybody. They're all busy. Look at all the suitcases here. Private people from the PC. Look at all the suitcases here. And I looked at this guy right here. That's my dad. I almost, and there he is being the Bart. Yeah, Bart. Yep. And here's the cars I was telling you about. We loaded the magazines into instructor. Yeah, and I had this slide for like, I don't know, 20 years. These are the, I don't know what these were, but they're young men dressed for a World War II type of operations. I'm telling that because the railroad track, well, this could have been World War I. Probably World War, yeah. There's my dad, too. This is a buffet lounge car. The owl that we talked about before left Hoboken at like 11:30 at night and got to Dansville about 10:30 in the morning. It took like 11 and a half hours to go 318 miles. But it stopped at every station, picked up the mail. So it had a coach, sleeper, and in Elmira, they put on a buffet lounge car, and you could have a little breakfast brunch in the lounge car. This is stopped in Dansville, of course. And there's my, they're all departed now. My sister, Diane, she died in 20. My mother, she died in 99. My dad died sometime, 82. But the busy station, I mean, it's a really, really busy station because it was like, we had the Bernard McFadden's coming there, and there was 4 trains each way. This is, again, my adopted uncle, Carl Howe. He was the agent. Dansville, Wayland, Cohocton, Avoca, closed them all. Ended up closing Mount Morris. My sister with a couple of her friends from the PC. Here we are. The first agent on the left.
Walter Hickey.
No. Is that the left?
No, but
No, wait for it. This is Snyder. The guy on the right, as it says, first agent Snyder on the left. I don't know what Snyder's first name was. I can look it up. But in Walter Hickey, only had 4 agents from 1880 until 1962. So he was 1, Walter Hickey was 2, and who was?
Leo Engel.
Bingo! This girl wins the prize.
Leo Engel.
Yes.
followed Walter
Yes,
Hickey.
yes, he did.
And Walter Hickey was the father
Of the
Dennis
Bishop Hickey.
who was our auxiliary bishop for Rochester.
This girl knows her stuff. Give her that door prize over there. So here's about the only color picture I ever saw of the Lackawanna. This was actually a red paint, but it kind of faded to a burnt orange. But there's the station again. This door was where they kept the salt, and right up here on the counter, I have the switch lock that was on that door. My uncle closed this place, and so they built it in 19. They had a fire in the station in 1907, and they built this station in 11 days. So they built it because it was so far out of town. 1911, you didn't have good roads. They built it for the agent to live upstairs with his family. And I think they said Snyder lived up there for a while, but it was too cold and drafty and very noisy, a lot of trains going by. All right, I like that one. I'm here every night, guys. So here we are on the Phoebe Snow, not me, but somebody else taking this picture of the Railway Express. Donnie Gould's father was the Railway Express agent in Dansville. Dwight Daniels was the mail guy, and this is the Phoebe Snow just leaving Dansville. And there's Mr. Snyder, the first agent on the wooden platform, the depot, looking westbound. He's on the crossing for 256 up here. And this is another thing that stumped me again. And this guy here, hello, Daddy. There's my father again. So this really stumped us. I had this on the internet, and we're trying to figure this out because the Phoebe Snow wouldn't get light like this, and we went around and around. He has a lot of old cars, like the secondary cars in his train. He's kicking up the brake smoke coming down the hill. But somebody pointed out he's got white flags on. I mean, this was an extra train. And what they used to do, believe it or not, from Elmira, they ran a Ice Capades train.
Yes, they did.
And Howard Gunlock would like rent 2 or 3 coaches out for his people to get on and take the family. So we're conjecturing this is one of the Ice Capade because it's the secondary freight unit, secondary passenger units that have now been replaced by the bigger 2 units. But that's my father again, just perking up there. I thought this was a freight train, and I looked at it more deeply, and it's a passenger engine and an old passenger engine. It's coming into Dansville right now, and he's got all these mail storage cars on the front. That's Train 15. That's where Bob's father came home from the war. So this is Route 256 that came up in a crossing. There was no electronic signal works. This is, I would guess, to be 1900, 1901, because the smaller engines before Truesdale came along and rebuilt the bridges. So it's one of the earlier pictures I've seen of the crossing. And if you look at, come on, baby. So if you look, there's the same location right now as you look at it. That was like last winter.
Does Old Depot Road cross the old?
Yes, well, we'll get it. Yeah, we'll get there in a second. Hang on. Yeah, they opened it back up. So there's the shot then 122 years ago, and there it is now. So the next picture, as you'll see, thank you, Priscilla, asking this. The depot sat here. This is the old 256, and this where that picture was taken of the steam engine. He was coming that way, and I took the picture of the train going the grade that way. The depot sat right about in here, and this is where it went over 256.
Where's the hole?
The hole. Bob Glover reminded me. Kaz probably remembers this too. There was a hole up at the depot, an old foundation hole, and we had to. There was a tradition, a passing of tradition, that every year the senior class had to fill that hole with beer bottles, beer cans. So that's what Bob just reminded me. So here we are, the 256 crossing. We now replaced the inner crossbucks with a wig-wag signal. Very neat stuff. It swung back and forth, went ding, 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 ding. It says, look out for train. So this is probably the Lackawanna Limited, one of the Hudsons, and that's the 256 road going up the hill. And there's just the top of the water tank there. And so here's another engine starting out on the crossing. I just bought this at a train show last weekend. This is 256 looking down the hill. The depot is over here. This is the top of the water tank, okay? And there's the platform of the depot. This is really one of those nice cat's eye railroad crossing signs. And on the way here today, I tried to stay at the same spot, and I took I blew it. I took this picture. So that's today, and that's 1937. So I'm pretty much on the same spot there. You can see the tracks were here. The depot platform was there. But I thought it was kind of neat. On the way down, I said I want to take this shot. So I got this last Sunday, and I got this picture today. Just stuck it in the program. I love the before and afters. It's really kind of neat. It's kind of sad sometimes too. So here we are. This showed up on the internet about 10 years ago, and he's right behind me. This is Tommy Womp. This is Terry McAllister. I don't know who this is here, and the kid with his hand sticking out is me. I think either Paulie or that's you in the middle there, Tommy, right in here. We used to go up. Tom's father, if you don't know, was the postmaster. So we used to go up. My dad had the taxi business, and so I think my dad must have brought us up there, or maybe Mr. Womp brought us up there. But we were watching the Phoebe Snow leave. Tom, did you know you're going to be in this program tonight?
I'm not sure. All I remember I was in Groveland.
Groveland, New York? All right, so here. I took this before and after, because there I am sitting in the baggage cart with my hand out. Now, if you look, I took about 10 shots to get this. See this hill right here, the proximity of the hill, East Hill? Shh, Come on, try to do a program here, Bob. So there's the hill again, and the station's gone, and it's just actually a guy's got a house in there now, and he actually mows the lawn pretty well. So there's a shot of the Dansville station, probably in the later years, like 60, 61, just before the end. So now we're on the rear of the train. We're leaving Dansville, probably in the Lackawanna Limited by the looks of the sun angles, early in the morning, and we're heading up East Hill. Okay, so here's a train. It was the Lackawanna Limited before the Phoebe Snow. A really good guy, photographer, John Krause, come out and took this picture. He had to walk about 3/4 of a mile, because this is milepost 318 is right here, and depot was 318.7. So about 3/4 of a mile. He was a very famous for walking in, getting the rare shots. But this is kind of 1940, I'd say summer of 49, because here's one of the new Lackawanna Phoebe Snow coaches. Rest of the cars are all the old heavyweights, and this is the RPO, Railroad Post Office, and baggage car that they rebuilt for the Phoebe Snow. So that and this locomotive in the front will become the Phoebe Snow in November of 1949.
Stay on that picture a minute. How much of that whole route, when they were building this railroad, had to be blasted
Well,
out?
so if you look at this, so right here, the hill came down like that.
Yeah.
So right here, this whole angle here. So you had to blast this ledge out.
I was just going to ask that, was that blasted out in the 1800s?
18 what? Give me the date.
1880 to 1882.
Thank you, Priscilla. She's getting double door prize. So here we are, same spot, the Lackawanna Limited just passed here. And here's some Groveland pushers on the train, and he's shoving up on a wooden caboose. Mostly all reefers, which probably would be a BH2, which is a Buffalo to Hoboken train. He came off a nickel plate, all reefers of meat. And back here, the sign, the speed limit sign, is in my backyard now. I was able to get that after they tore the tracks up. Refrigerated boxcar. So in this era, what they would do, there was bunkers on each end, and they would chop ice, and they'd fill the bunkers with chopped ice. They have a whole series of fans, blew the cold air over it. So that's how they transported vegetables and fruits and meat prior to the early 1970s. Yeah, so this is a great shot. The PC is here, the top of the PC. So this is kind of probably Seward Street right here, down the hill, and the PC's there. And this is pre Truesdale coming along. This is like 1901. You can see the old crappy rock ballast, the lighter rail that doesn't have a lot of tie plates on the tracks. And again, whoever asked, so the slope of the hill came this way, and they blasted this whole ledge out for the Lackawanna. So here's a real early shot, and I was really coveting the whistle. I mean, Lackawanna had just a W, but this thing probably had to weigh 400 pounds. Now, the other thing is, I was in a quandary, too, because Dansville Depot's behind me, Whiteman's Gully's ahead of me, and you got the Route 63 overhead, Perkinsville overhead. There wasn't a crossing to Sawdust Road on the east side of Whalen. So what was this whistle for? So I kind of remember we used to hike up the tracks, and there was a road. If you continue on Chestnut Street all the way up, it goes up to Stein's house. Then it went around and like this, and went back up. So there was I think Chestnut Street, I don't know what it was called. It actually crossed the railroad up on the hill. So here's another shot of the whistle sign was back here. And here's that road, that Chestnut Street. It crossed the tracks here, went down and down into Chestnut Street, which was kind of, I had to put two and two and print one print together, another print. So again, here's another shot of where the crossing comes down. I think at this point the crossing was taken out because I don't see anything here. Look at all the grapevines. These grapevines were I don't know if they're still there, but when we were kids, they were a ratty looking shop. We used to have a little lunch, but all over the hill behind the King's Daughters were these grapevines. So again, here we are when I was telling you about that road. Here's the depot back here, and here's Health Street and 256 going across the tracks, which we had covered in well. But here's Chestnut Street. It goes up to Stein's house. It ends right there. But it did a switchback, a zigzag, crossed the tracks there. So that whistle sign we saw is back in here and went up here to the top of East Hill. So there was a grade crossing. I don't know when they discontinued that. So there's this kind of a sad shot of the PC and the ugly cell towers on the Lackawanna. And it's really ironic because this picture, I'm level, but you can actually see the grade that he's going up right in that picture. I mean, look at the top of the hill. You know the hill is straight across. He's going up that grade. Here we are on the Owl, the train with the buffet lounge coming westbound. Dansville Station's back here. The PC's right about in here. And here's screaming along, probably on the Phoebe Snow, leaving the beautiful Genesee Valley. The Foster Wheeler, again, is in the foreground in here in the valley. The same train, I think, someone took these pictures. He was on the back platform.
Were all those poles along the side just for telegraph?
No. They were, so what you had is these are 10-pin cross arms. So you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you had 50 lines, 50 wires. And now in a cable, you get 100 pair, 200 pair. So this was like, 50, it was 25 pairs of open wire. These two bottom lines, a second, let me get this right. The two bottom lines were the Western Union. These lines in here was the company line, and then there was the express line here. And these two lines up here carried the electric 440 volts to the signals and all that along the way. Here we are with the Phoebe Snow going eastbound, and the Owl with the buffet lounge on it and the long line of freight. Probably just about, what's the road up there? Goes up to Whiteman's Gully. Help me. Searle Road, yeah. So he's probably right around Searle Road because it looks like the curvature because the hill is just starting down there. So here we are, Whiteman's Gully, and I want to thank the lady that has all the postcards, Jane Schreiber. Because I had seen this picture and the Culbertson picture, and I would look like crazy last night through all my stuff. I couldn't find any one of these pictures, so I texted her this morning, and she sent me these like 11 o'clock, and I stuck them in the program. This is Whiteman's Gully, again, where the bridge is torn down. But again, they built a culvert, a stone culvert, an arch concrete culvert, and filled this all in with, somebody said that they threw old railroad cars and everything in there. So this is all filled in, and they built the railroad over the top of the fill and got rid of the bridge. It was there to put heavier locomotives and heavier loads on the railroad. So now we've gone around the corner. Route 63 is right here. This is the back road to Perkinsville. And this is another HB3, Hoboken to Buffalo. He's the empty reefer trains, and a nice little ABBA set of FTs, little foam box there. A lot of nice glitter going around here. This is the back road to Perkinsville. Very unusual. These type of locomotives weren't normally used for pushers, but here we have a shot off the Wayland Bridge looking towards the Perkinsville Bridge of two RS3s shoving the train up the hill. Very unusual for them to be. They were mostly at East End locomotives. They didn't come west of Binghamton. So here we are with the Lackawanna Limited. It's a good perspective. John Woodbury took this picture in like 1941. But so the tracks curve around here. That's Route 63 to Perkinsville. Whiteman's Gully is right about here. The tracks go all the way back here and into here, and there's the Dansville Hill. The next shot is really neat because it's got a freight train on it. So here's the freight train, and again from the Perkinsville Bridge, Wayland 63, and there's the pushers on the back shoving on him. He's brought 80 cars back in the train. This again is on a whole loaded reefer train. These were all what they call Lackawanna lines. They were a set of a subsidiary the Lackawanna Railroad had for reefer cars. The beautiful Perkinsville Station, which collapsed on itself. It's built in 1880 when they built the railroad. Had its original slate roof, which lasted, over 100 years, and kind of was in disrepair in the 70s. And about 2010, the whole roof collapsed in on the building. There's a little picture of it went after it lost its eaves, and picture just before it collapsed. You can see it's already buckling here, and the whole roof went in. I always wanted, that's a Gaga thing, those pinnacles they had on that station, and these great looking windows. So here we are, just to take you back in orientation. Here's the back road to Perkinsville. We saw a lot of pictures. And then coming into Perkinsville and going in here. And this is, they actually put this is a marrow beds. They used to dig marrow out. And there was a little railroad in Wayland that had that little steam engine. And they actually processed the marrow into drywall. And it had a connection to the Erie. And it was all in the swamps. If you go out and back at the high school of Wayland, people say you can still see the ties from this little piece of railroad in the woods. And I never knew. I was out there 50, 60 years ago, and I couldn't figure out what it was until I found this map. So here's another one of my drawings. Again, we're orientated Perkinsville back this way, and then the Lackawanna came in, and there was a Y to turn the pushers on, and the depot was here, and Gunlocks is right there. And the Pittsburgh Shawmut Northern came in from St. Mary's, PA. They had their little Y, and they had a coal yard where they brought this pump house, believe it or not, and telegraph office is still there. Oh yeah, here's kind of the same thing I just showed you. If you can relate to this, is it? Go back. Back. Come on. So again, what you're looking at is the aerial, is the Y for the Lackawanna and the Shawmut yard there. So give you a little proximity, and then so here's the Lackawanna's Y, and here in the marl beds. Here's the big yard. The Wayland tank is right there. This Y for the Shawmut, if you drive down 390, you go over Route 21 down here, Route 15. It's the farmers. That's all cut out in the farmers' field. That's the top of the Y, where they would bring the steam engines in and turn them around and go back. They would come into Lackawanna, deliver a coal train, run around back of it, and they'd turn the engines around, take some empty cars back, and go back to St. Mary's. So that's the Shawmut Y. You can still see that today, very prevalent. Again, there's where the Shawmut, their Y is back behind me over my right shoulder. Lackawanna's Y is here, and this is where the Shawmut came in to the Lackawanna's, what they called a Wayland tank. It was a telegraph office, but there was they called it Wayland tank because they pumped the water out of the marl beds and they steamed the engines. There's the tank. So they would pump the water out of the marl beds into the tank, and there's the spigots for the steam engines. So the pushers would come up and they would refill in Wayland if they had to. Just another look. There's the Shawmut being torn up. This is 1947. There's the pump house, which was also called Wayland Tank. And there's an aerial view of that Wayland Tank pump house is still there. So now we're at Wayland. This is a passing siding the Lackawanna had, so you had a remote control switch back here. He would let an eastbound train in the siding. He would wait. And as the passenger went by him, he could go out, and there's what they call a spring switch. It'd push over, and he could go out without throwing the switch, and it returned to normal after his train cleared. This is virtually the scene of that terrible wreck. Here's a picture my friend took in 1972 of a ballast train in Wayland. This is another picture we worked on for a long time. Couldn't figure out. It's an early morning train, and number 2 would be this time of year in winter would be in the dark, so we couldn't figure out what train this was. Then we looked at it. It's all sleeper cars, and we're saying, with the people just kind of watching here, it was a Pullman troop sleeper coming back from World War II. So happy Armistice Day, or Memorial Day, not Memorial Day, but Veterans Day to all the people that were on that train. And it looks like they just grabbed one of the refrigerator baggage cars that had a steam line through it, throw all the bags in there as their suitcases and stuff. And this was a whole troop train coming back, bringing the boys back from the war. So somebody mentioned about the terrible derailment they had there. This is the exact spot of the derailment. Again, it's a nice picture of the owl left at Hoboken at midnight. Got Dansville 11:30. All heavy head-end mail, coach, sleeper, and the buffet lounge that they added in Elmira. That's all, folks. But wait. So here's actually the Phoebe Snow going through Elmira Tower. And the towermen throwing the levers, clearing the switches up. That's what the stuff we saw in Groveland. There's the Phoebe Snow going by into Elmira. Get rid of that mouse. This is very unusual. Smaller trains, but that's all Lackawanna before the merger. Coach, diner, coach, sleeper.
How come they didn't have a caboose?
It's the passenger train. You don't have passenger trains and cabooses. This is another. I can't figure out what this train is. It's all heavyweight old equipment, and it's got some reefer cars in the middle. Let me get forward a little bit. I know I'm running a lot of time here. Okay, here's the Phoebe Snow going through the Delaware Water Gap. I actually own and operate freight trains through the Water Gap now. This is in the Delaware Water Gap, the Pennsylvania-New Jersey border. Water Gap Station, train coming by. It's eastbound Phoebe Snow. And just pay real attention because about the next shot is the train number 15 we've talked about, the Owl, and going through Groveland at speed, and the Phoebe Snow coming back the other way. I think it's the next shot coming up. Right? No, this is Binghamton. Sorry. Wait for it. Here's Groveland. The sign that's on the counter right there. That sign. And here comes the Owl, number 15, by the Groveland station, and the Owl and the Phoebe Snow kind of. What was that by my phone? Westbound Phoebe Snow. It's like 6 o'clock at night. Westbound. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. That's in the morning. Here comes the Phoebe Snow at 70 miles an hour by the Groveland station, kicking up the dust.
70 miles an hour?
Yeah, they went 70. Yeah. And remember that spot now? It's all the trees. I showed you that picture.
Now, how fast could they go in the winter?
70 miles an hour.
Not from Dansville to Whalen.
No, there was actually the funny thing about I have one of the slow signs. The Lackawanna had, this is Avoca, they had restrictions on the speed on Dansville Hill, but the lowest I saw the speed on Dansville Hill was 60 miles an hour.
Really?
Yeah. This is at Avoca. That bridge is still there. Piggybacks. And wait for it, so there's a caboose on this. Yeah, there's a single track there. And there's the caboose. Yay! Conductor waving. Bath. I can stop this anytime. I'm running late anyways, right? I'm okay? The boss says I'm good. I'm over my 45 minutes. This is 390 right now, which then the tracks are over here and they go over underneath it. There's the freight crew going back to work after the Phoebe Snow went by. So he's going to pull out the side and follow the freight down.
Why did they cease operation for the DL&W around here?
Oh, it's a long story.
Was it all financial?
Everything's financial. There was no politics at all. It was just the business went away. I mean, and then,
Well, that's true.
when I was in college, just out of college, I used to go down camping at River Junction. There was 25 to 30 trains a day that went through River Junction. That was combined Lackawanna, area Lackawanna trains. And now there's two each way a day. There's 4 trains, maybe 6 trains a day. Just all the business went different ways. You have FedEx and all that. There's the Phoebe Snow.
Well, right here in Dansville, too, we lost FAO and we lost
You lost everything. Rapid Grow,
Rapid Grow, all the nurses.
Foster Wheeler.
30 nurses.
Foster Wheeler. So there's the Phoebe leaving Elmira eastbound. There's the ghost train. So I'm going to kind of just wrap it up here. I mean, I can hang on. I don't know what else I got in here. I got more slides. Oh, this is after the merger, the Erie Lackawanna. They operated from 1960, October 60 to July of 62. This is the remnant of the Phoebe Snow, screaming about 70 miles an hour by the Avoca station. Just the milepost and the timetable of the stations. There's some interesting stuff here. There's the Groveland. Somebody spoke of the Groveland YMCA. It's here. They actually had a YMCA where the crews could lay over and stay overnight, have breakfast in the morning. The Groveland House. This is what the YMCA was the Groveland House. There's the Groveland House again. Jerome Hanlon and Earl Marion Hammond, Groveland Station, 1950. There's some of the workers when you said like 100 people, I mean, there was a lot of jobs to do. I like this here, some Groveland Station, including some of the Groveland High School kids for summer work. Back row, John Kane, Frederick Bennett, Don Richmond, Frank Salvano, John Luciani, Robert Bauer. Oops. Who knows Robert Bauer? You are? Where? Do you recognize him in this crowd? Wait, it says back row. John Kane has. Let me get my mouse up on here. So here's oh shit! I used my pointer. Here's John Kane, Frederick Bennett, Don Richmond? Huh?
What do they call the back row?
Hey, I think that's it right there. This is the front row. Okay, and then, would you say Robert Bauer? Robert Bauer, that's him right here.
That's not the last row.
Is this Robert Bauer? You'll vote for that? All right, there's your husband. He's at where the Groveland sign is. Well, if you got, do you recognize anybody in this group? This looks like a motley track crew. They're out there all dirtied and working on the railroad. Another engine crew. So when you see 100 people working in Groveland, these are all people that worked in Groveland. There's John Kane, Groveland Station Roundhouse foreman. See, they called it a roundhouse, and it was square. And here's Albert Leader. Latier. Okay, him too. He was a conductor out of Groveland. I like this too. Here is his color was white. His height was 5'7", 160. Hair brown, eyes gray. His complexion was fair. I don't know what fair meant, but some passes. There's John Leiter's passes for him, then his wife. And that's just back long lines of Groveland Station. So that is the end, my folks, and thank you for your time.